Hello. How are you?
Hi.
Hi. Just to let you know, I have started the recording. And I'm going to wait just for a minute to see if anyone else joins us. As we're waiting, could you introduce yourselves to me and to others? Oh, you're on mute.
Sure.
I do that all the time. I have my microphone muted and I start speaking. I've done that in classes and I've had kids laugh at me for that.
Oh no, I do it all the time. Oh.
Well, I've kind of gotten used to it now. So I'm Divya. I'm from India. I'm a middle school and high school teacher. I teach language and literature, often unsuccessfully because of how it's been due to the pandemic. Schools have been closed, for the last 2 years. So the state has been kind of bad. But we've tried to work our way around the situation. Most of my learners come from an economically weak background and do not have access to internet or smartphones. Their parents, however, do have, smartphones. So, it's usually the father, which would probably also be the next thing in our discussion if we discuss race and gender. So it's usually the father who has this smartphone and he takes it to work with him. So the way we do our classes then is, instead of doing live classes, what we do is we record sessions and we send those sessions to them on WhatsApp or, and they can then access their those sessions at their, convenience. So that's how we've been doing things. And yeah, that's about me.
Well, good luck. That sounds very difficult.
Thank you. Yeah. We do need luck. Yeah, we have schools opening up now, though. So things should improve. Yes.
Good. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but is it Spiti?
Yeah, it is Spiti.
Spiti.
Yeah. Actually, I'm a research scholar from India. And right now I'm doing my MPhil in critical psychology. And yeah, I've been, currently I'm working on feminist psychology. So yeah, I mean, because, gender inequalities and gender inequities, particularly in the domain of education and in India, it's a big deal. So yeah, right now I'm working on that.
Okay, great. Well, welcome.
Great to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you. And it's great that you're both from India. That's very cool. I'm from the United States, the East Coast, Massachusetts. And let me get my presentation up on the screen and we can talk about it.
Sorry.
Okay, so basically, I'm supposed to say this for recording purposes. Welcome to Race and Gender via Relational Dialogue in the Community College Classroom. My name is Kara Kaufman, and I'll be the presenter for this session. Today is November 5th, 2021, and our session number is C12. So just a little bit about me. I earned my Ph.D. from the Taos Institute, actually, in 2010. And I teach history and gender and women's studies courses at North Shore Community College in Massachusetts, US. And I've been teaching for over 20 years, and I really love what I do. And much like yourself, I'm struggling with how to teach in the pandemic. I'm in my home right now and not on my campus, so we are still closed for the fall semester. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is to actually give you a methodology on how to bring relational dialogue into a classroom, and discuss the intersection of race and gender, which is a really politically charged topic around the world, and especially right now in the United States. So in this work that we're doing with like dialogic techniques and relational theory and all of that, and stuff that we're hearing in this conference can be at the really top level, like the broad overview level. And I thought, well, sometimes, speaking from my experience, sometimes I really want I really want to know how to put this into practice. Sometimes that's what I'm really needing. And so I thought I'd give you an example of how I've done it, and it has been successful. So that's my intention for today. So I am going to be talking about how I intentionally structured my gender and women's studies course called Masculinities around the principles of relational dialogue. And I'm going to show you the pedagogical approach. And then after that, we can just have a conversation. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so a handful of years ago, I attended a professional development workshop given by Essential Partners in Cambridge, Massachusetts, US, on a relationally dialogic methodology called Reflective Structured Dialogue, also called RSD. And that summer, I had planned to create a new course called Masculinities, and I was searching for a structure that would create a safe and empathetic environment to discuss many volatile topics within that course. So I'm going to briefly explain the components of RSD first, and then I'll launch into my approach. So reflective structured dialogue is intricate, and it deserves way more time than I have here to do it justice. However, I'd like to highlight some of its main points and objectives. So everything you do as a facilitator is highly structured and intentional so that students know what is coming and what is expected of them in advance. So no surprises translates to less fear and more trust. And ironically, the structure is rigid so that students can let go of anxiety and intentionally reflect and think deeply in an unstructured way. So that's the irony. RSD uses dialogues of lived experience in order to create empathy and shared meaning with a community of diverse peoples. And the topics discussed are often volatile and politically charged. So structure creates equity in that each person has a chance to share for a specific amount of time. Silence is purposefully incorporated to give space for reflective responses and lessen impulsive reactions. The hierarchy of the classroom is flattened such that I, the professor, turn into facilitator of the structure and not a driver of the content. Okay. This is essentially the structure. First and foremost, you and the students co-create a set of agreed upon values as parameters of the dialogue. So for example, you might co-create something like take space, share space. So that means that no one is dominant in the conversation. Another parameter might be the talking stick rule. In other words, when someone is speaking, don't interrupt them. And the one that absolutely has to be there is pass or pass for now. So unlike in traditional rules of education, students are not required to participate and are given agency in this process. It's assumed that silence does not equal resistance or checking out. Instead, silence is an intentional choice, and it's recognized as a way of participating. So then I would write the prompt on the board, whatever it is that we are going to, the question that we're going to discuss. And using a timer, students have silent reflection for 2 minutes on the prompt. Then each person has 2 minutes on the timer to share, or they may choose to pass or pass for now without judgment, without punishment. After each person has a turn, there will be silent reflection for a minute on what they've experienced, what they've heard. And each person has 2 minutes on the timer to share their reflections, or again, they may pass. And then allowance for a specific amount of time for open conversation. So that's really the structure of it. So I'm going to present my unit on the intersection of race and masculinities within the Black community as an example of how one may incorporate this methodology into the course. So the course is divided into units, and each unit follows a pattern of dialogue, interactive lecture, and cultural artifacts, and the unit spans over 5 classes. Okay, so each unit is about 5 classes. All right, class 1. You want to purposefully enter into this methodology slowly with your students. So I describe RSD in class 1 and how it will work, and I answer any questions they have in order to make sure that they are comfortable with what's going to happen. Then the students and I co-create the parameters that we just talked about, and then we do a practice round using a totally benign prompt, nothing politically charged or anything like that. And the practice round would go like this. I would write the agreed upon parameters on the board, and that's always a good idea to remind students visually that this is what the values that we have agreed on. I write the prompt on the board, and a benign prompt would be something like this. What did you leave behind in order to be with us today? Silent reflection on the timer for 2 minutes. Then they are allowed 1 minute to share or pass for now. Then silent reflection for 1 minute and a facilitated open conversation. So that's day 1. And for homework for day 2, I give them the questions that I will ask in the RSD in class number 2 in order to do some thinking and journaling. Remember, there's no surprises in this methodology. You want to make sure students are aware of what you're doing every step of the way. It builds trust. So the journals, by the way, would be private between the students and me. And these are the journal questions that I would ask. So a traditional class might start with an open dialogue around race and racism. However, it could lead to silencing people of color, stereotypical remarks, unintended or intended offense, and a hostile environment. So you want to not talk about race and racism and everything that's included in that first. Instead, this methodology, we start with an RSD around the elements of racism and racism. So we don't talk about those topics. We talk about the stuff that is the foundation for those topics, like power, difference, advantage, disadvantage, othering, things like that. The dialogue is meant to get to the students' lived experiences around those elements. So you might have a student deciding that they're going to talk about how they've been excluded because of their race, but they may not choose to go there. They might choose to share a story of how they've been excluded in some other way, okay? So these are the questions that I will ask. And again, the journal is private between students and me. And then on to class 2. This is when we get to the dialogue, RSD. We conduct a dialogue using the exact questions asked in the journal, using the reflective structured dialogue methodology we just discussed. And the goal is to create mutual understanding, empathy, and compassion around the student's experience. So in this scenario, the structure, the RSD would be done twice. We would go through 2 rounds because there were 2 sets of questions. And then homework before class 3. Now that we've created a community of shared meaning, we can introduce the topics of race and racism and everything that goes with it: whiteness, white privilege, white supremacy, etc. For homework, I have them read or watch videos or listen to podcasts that introduces some of the theory around these topics and some of the experiences of the scholars' lives. And I have them answer journal questions about them. And I've given you some source examples here that I've used in my class very successfully. Okay, class number 3, middle of the road here. In class number 3, we actually discuss race, history of racism, whiteness, white privilege, white supremacy, etc., via an interactive lecture. So notice that it has taken 2 classes in order to get to one of the goals, which is to discuss race and racism, right? But we don't start at the goal. We have to start back from the goal and scaffold up in order to create a community of trust. So this dialogue that created a sense of community and trust and shared understanding of the components behind racism allows for a safer, more productive, and compassionate discussion than if you started the unit with a traditional lecture. And when I say interactive lecture, I might be at the front of the room with the whiteboard, writing down some notes and helping the students conquer some of the difficult theory. But I am not the driver of this lecture. I still want to have a dialogue between my students and myself. Homework before class 4. We want to, I give them sources to read or watch or listen on the intersection of race and masculinity within the Black communities and answer journal questions. So now we're adding a layer, we're adding a scaffold. We've conquered race and racism, and now we're looking to bring in a gendered point of view and helping the students understand that there's an intersectionality going on rather than 2 things standing in silos. And again, I've given you some source examples here that I've used quite successfully. And they would have journal questions to answer. And then the last, class number 4, we would have an interactive lecture on the intersection of race and masculinity. Again, drawing upon the lived experiences of both the students and the scholars within their scholarly work, trying to ground the theory into what is happening in real life in their students' families, their individuals, their communities, etc. Empathy and community are created when you can see yourself in others' experiences, even if you don't share the same experience. And now, homework before class 5, almost done. Here's where the students' work shines. So they get to choose for homework a cultural artifact that resonates with them. So their choice, it's their agency here. They get to choose a cultural artifact that they're going to analyze based on what we've learned in this unit so far. And I create a Google site open to the whole class, and they get to create their own subpage around this cultural artifact, and they get to analyze it the way that they want, the way that it speaks to them, and they can create their subpage in a way that speaks to them. So it can be very creative. And some examples of artifacts, in other words, I use the word cultural artifact. What I mean by that is anything that we could encounter in our daily lives. Now, whether that's a song or an artifact or a ritual or even a dream, anything that could affect us in our lives. And then class number 5, the last class of the unit, the students present their cultural artifact to each other and have a dialogue with each other around their analyses. And this really allows students to showcase what they've learned and their creativity, and that they can learn from each other. And I can learn from them, which is most often the case. And then we repeat the pattern, going on to a different topic. Some units that I have explored in my course using this pattern, toxic masculinity, masculinity in youth, masculinity in religion, alternative masculinities. I also want to say that RSD is not just for humanities courses. It can be applied to any subject. For example, if you're a nursing teacher, a nursing professor, and you have difficult subjects that you have to talk about, like if you're a nurse in the field and you encounter a mother who is drug addicted and giving birth to a drug addicted baby, how are you going to deal with that situation in an empathetic and a compassionate way? Or if you're a science teacher and you're talking about evolution to a community that is very steeped in traditional Christian values, for example. Or if you're a math professor and you're looking at your students and you can see the fear and the stereotypes that they have internalized around math and who's good at math and who's not. So it can be really empowering for students of any discipline. And that's that. So thank you for listening. That was kind of a how-to, if you will. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I would love to hear what you all think or any questions you have. And welcome to another person who joined. Oh, and another person who just joined. Hello. Hi. Does
Hi.
anyone?
I do, Dr.
Yeah.
Kaufman. I joined as you were speaking,
Uh-huh.
and so I missed the origin of RDS. Can you share again? Is that your model or some other?
It's another person. So Essential Partners, I'll put it in the chat. This is their website. Essential Partners of Cambridge, Massachusetts, US, have developed this methodology. And it's called, for those of you who are just joining, it's called Reflective Structured Dialogue. And the whole point is that in a classroom, if you're talking about really volatile topics, like the example that I gave, which is the intersection between race and gender, if you're talking about really volatile topics and you just launch into what is racism, you might get really offensive, impulsive reaction. And what the goal with RSD, reflective structured dialogue, is to back up and go into it intentionally and slowly. And it's really highly structured so that we can create empathy and a shared community. But the structure allows for students to kind of let go of anxiety, participate if they want, just lean back if they want, and to share their lived experiences around the elements of whatever you're talking about. So it's highly effective. I've used it for a few years now with great success. My students love it. And we are able to talk about really politically charged topics in a relational way.
Thank you. That's helpful. Can you share what students are saying about this, using this framework?
Yes. So one of the common comments is that they feel calmer in the classroom setting, because they know that if they're not willing to, or just don't want to for whatever reason, share, they can sit back and participate by silently reflecting, and they won't get penalized for it. So they tell me in a typical discussion class, they feel really, really anxious that they have to participate, whether they want to or not. And for students who have anxiety disorder, if they know that a discussion section of a course is coming, they might not go to class that day. And so that's a common denominator comment that I get a lot. Another comment that I've had, they really like listening to their peers instead of the old woman in the room, me, right? So they really, and a white woman at that, cisgendered even. So I'm a cisgendered, heterosexual, white, middle-class, privileged woman teaching masculinities on the intersection of race and gender. What, right? So they really appreciate that I decenter myself and I recenter them, and I play off of their experiences, and I try to help them see connections between what they're experiencing and what the theory says, right? So I'm the one making these connections if they need it. Now, sometimes they make the connections and I'm in awe because this is a community college classroom and I'm tackling really intense stuff, right? Really highly theoretical stuff. And they blow me away. Like they get it in a way that I don't necessarily get it. So they really love listening to each other and realizing that they could be from very different backgrounds, and yet they have human experiences. Maybe not in the same way, but like they have human experiences. So those are some of the comments. You're welcome. Welcome to our other new people. Are there any experiences that you might have? I'm not sure if you are all professors or teachers or in the classroom.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening for wherever you may be. My apologies for dropping in late, but I just came from a class. So
Okay.
I'm at a pre-K-12 school in Guatemala, and we are currently engaging in beginning formations of different conversation groups throughout our community around DEIR. And I'm coming here, even though I know this is community college level, but I'm wondering, dropping back down a little bit, especially our high schoolers are the ones that are pushing the envelope for many conversations. And we're having quite a few members of our community, since we have them around us, of parents who are not so excited to engage in this. So this is my motive for coming in today and just hearing some of the other apertures that are going on.
Right. So a little bit about the Essential Partners. I guess you can call it a business, not really business, community. What they do is they take relational conversation, dialogic theory, and they go throughout the world and they bring together groups of people who are in unbelievable conflict. So for example, they have traveled to countries in Africa, for example, who have just stopped a multi-decade civil war. And they get the two sides together at a table, and they use their methodology that is very steeped in everything that the Taos Institute has done to great success. So they bring this methodology to all kinds of different situations. So whether it's like high stakes civil war ravaged communities or my little classroom, right? So your conflict, if you will, with parents, you could intentionally design one of these dialogues with the parents, and it could be a listening session around whatever contentious topic or issue that you're dealing with. And they have said that, again, it's quite successful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other reflections, comments, questions? One thing I should say is a lot of, Ken Gergen actually spoke to this really, really briefly in the first plenary session, is, if you're intentionally removing the industrial model of education and you're, for example, taking out the test. I have taken out the test completely from my classes years ago, and I'm so glad I did it. But that sometimes leaves you with the question of, well, okay, but how do you grade, right? Like, you got to give them a grade at the end of the semester because we still are in this industrial model. You can't really get around that, okay? So one of the things with this methodology is I grade on, are you participating? And that's it. Did you reflect in your journals? Check. Were you present in the dialogue? Now remember, present does not mean talking necessarily, right? Were you present? Even if you were silent, check. In your reflective journals and your cultural artifact, did you try? Check, right? So it's more of a, yes, you were there and you tried and you were participating to whatever degree you were, rather than here's a rubric and here's exactly what you have to do and did you do this and did you, I let go of that. But Divya, you have your hand up? You're on mute.
Same old thing again. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I love the idea of not having to grade, and having other methods of assessing. But, on a larger scale, like how does your school function? Like how would you have the autonomy to completely, let go of something like assessment as an individual? Like I
Right.
couldn't do that in my school. We would have exams. We would have
Oh.
summative exams and formative exams. And so how does that work? Like, I just want to know
Well-
how your system works.
Right. So it really does, your question, it really does get to systemic, right, structures. So for us, at the higher education level, so we have, primary, secondary, and then higher education, meaning community
Right.
college, university, etc. We are unionized. We are a public college. And we're unionized. And one of the things that we fought for a long time ago and we've kept was academic freedom to the extent of how it fits into the larger system. So for example, I can't say that I refuse to give my students a grade at the end of the semester that will go on their transcript. I can't do that, but I can decide how I conduct my class. So I can decide, should I do an exam? Should I not do an exam? Should I do whatever? And I have that academic freedom.
Wow, that is the kind of liberty a given arm for, in India.
I know.
We-
And we hold it dear and we fight for that privilege to continue every contract cycle. So I am.
There's just one more tiny thing, if I
Yeah,
might
yeah.
take another second. I've been listening to you and I've been taking notes, but they kind of scrolled really like dirtily. Is there any way we could get like a recording, this recording, we could have access to it so that I can
Absolutely.
listen to it again?
Yes.
Thank you.
The institute, the Taos Institute, is going to make available these videos. However, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat here, and I will give you anything you want, literally.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That is so kind of you.
You're welcome. So yeah, I will literally share my entire unit plan if you want it. I believe in open educational resources. In fact, our college is leaning to that quite well. My own courses, I don't assign textbooks. Everything that I do assign is free, and they can get it in the library.
That is so cool. I wanted to ask you, I was going to read these like 100, I was going to read this like 100 times. I only did not ask you for your entire unit plan because I thought I might be charged with intellectual dishonesty or the intention of it.
No,
I did not, but I'm so happy that we would have access to it. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Absolutely. Yes. If you email me, I will put everything in Google Drive, shared doc, and send it out to whomever wants it. So
Wow.
there you
You're
go.
hands down the coolest facilitator.
Thank you. Why kill yourself? Why reinvent the wheel? I mean, I've had colleagues help me.
Do
I'm going to
other
help
things.
you,
Yes.
right?
And these are some great ideas. So, yes.
So yeah. And if for some reason I don't answer you, that means you come into my spam folder. So here is my telephone number. You can text me.
Oh my God.
I don't know of the country code or anything like that, but that's my cell phone number. So you can text me, just tell me who you are, and we can figure it out.
You're in the US, East Coast.
Yes. Yep.
I'll find out.
Near Boston.
Thank you so much. You are like I said, the coolest ever.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Anything else that you wanted to talk about? We don't even have to talk about what we're supposed to talk about. We can talk about anything.
Is it cold where you are?
Yes, it's getting chilly. I'm
It's
looking
getting
out the
chilly.
window at the moment and the leaves have turned. We just had a frost. So it's actually a beautiful day out.
Heading towards a white Christmas, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
It's very storybook around here.
The kind of thing I love. Might I show you something?
Yep.
It wouldn't turn. I'm technologically disabled, if that's the right word to use.
No, that's
Okay.
cool.
So I have always, like, I grew up loving fireplaces completely. I don't have a fireplace, but I have a mantle. That's my aunt. She's
Hi.
visiting me. This is a new house, and I have now bookshelves, and I have a fireplace, not a fireplace, a mantle, and
Nice.
I'm going to have an electric fireplace here soon.
Awesome.
So yeah, American influence.
Nice.
You know, the kind
Yep.
of thing that I grew up watching on TV, I finally have it. I actually like stood here and physically got it made.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this the house that I live in is actually considered quote unquote old for American houses. And
That's exactly the kind of old American houses that I like. White
yeah,
picket fence.
yeah. So
1980s, yes.
I love it. It's quirky.
Quirky, quaint.
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
So anyway, well, thank you all so much for
Thank you. I
being
hope
here.
we can keep in touch
I hope so too.
for long after this
Great.
very short interaction. Yes.
Where in India are you from?
I'm in Delhi. Yes.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yes.
Yes, definitely email me, and I hope to continue our conversation.
And if you ever come to India, if you ever visit Delhi, I'll be your, host.
Oh, thank you.
Ever
And if
so
you want to
happily.
come to Boston, come on up.
Yeah, I'd have to earn a lot more money to do that.
But maybe we could do like a professor's share.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't
If
that
that
be
happens,
fun?
that would be like, oh my God, that would be the biggest,
That would be fun.
thing that would happen to me in my professional life. Yes. I recently applied to Fulbright and failed miserably. They did not accept me. Well,
Oh,
yes, stuff happens. But as it turns out, I probably wasn't, like I hadn't seen this little, what do you call it? A little webinar. I hadn't attended it, in which they told you how to write your story. So I wrote my story the way I wanted to write my story. So
and yeah, they wanted you to follow the rules.
yeah, I'm not really one for rules very much. So I don't know if I'm even applying another time, but then
Oh,
maybe I am. Who knows?
yeah.
But
Okay.
America is a dream.
Oh, thanks. Well, you have a home visit.
Oh, we do.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.